Let me bring in my guests back in the discussion. Ambassador Bhattacharya, your thoughts on the series of meetings that the PM has had so far, including with the officials from the Trump cabinet. This was a get-to-know sort of a meeting?
So, as you can imagine, since in a sense this is a new administration, although all the characters of the new administration have been known to the Indian side for a long time, and External Affairs Minister had met with his counterpart just soon after the inauguration, and the Quad meeting was held as well. Defense Minister had a conversation with his counterpart not so long ago. And there have been numerous interactions already, and there's been intense preparation for this very significant visit. And quite apart from the fact that, of course, Prime Minister and President Trump are familiar to each other. So although it's a new administration, in a sense, many of the characters are known to each other. But I think it was important to reinforce the direction in which the two sides wish to go. We have witnessed for a very long time the very wide bipartisan support that we've had. But the new Trump administration provides us with a new opportunity so that we can go ahead with our objectives. As you know, we are embarked currently on the Viksit Bharat agenda. And in many ways, the US support and US participation in this would be very crucial. And I think what Prime Minister is doing is making sure that the US is fully on board. And I think that's the broad agenda under which our priorities are going forward, quite as much as we mesh in with the American priorities at the same time. And therefore, these various sectoral meetings or these sessions with the various new department heads are extremely crucial.
Absolutely. Mr. Kumar, I want you to weigh in on this new role that we see Elon Musk in. He seems to be everywhere. One day he is heckling or trolling leaders in Germany or Britain or even far off South Africa. On the other day, other days he's seen taking on or talking about corruption in US agencies, including US aid. He's talking about cutting down the government in his role as the chief of the Department of Government Efficiency. What should one make of Trump's new role in Trump 2.0?
I think as you will hear out the four different hats that Mr. Elon Musk is wearing at this point, we're focused at bringing efficiency into the government. The mandate that President Trump has to cut down the government expenses. But I would say that his role in Trump 2.0 maybe from India's point of view, it's a good role to be in, because I think as a private investor, as a tech entrepreneur, as someone who owns Tesla, who has been in negotiation with Government of India for market entry for quite some time, at the same time also owns and operates Starlink, which is again in talks with India for entry into the Indian market. So I think overall he could be one of the person who could bridge the private sector partnership between two sides. At the same time, as Mr. Bhattacharya rightly pointed out, that Government of India needs, and Prime Minister understands that for India's Viksit Bharat goal, we need United States support. And a lot of United States support will come from private sector technology partnership, technology transfer, investments into the India. And I believe that he would be one of those persons who could be, he could be the one who could actually be a bridge and play that facilitator role, because he will be working with the government, so he will know the bureaucracy in and out. At the same time, he is a private sector person, so he would also bring that into the equation while in negotiations or in discussions with India. And I think you also mentioned when you were categorizing different subjects which were covered when there were sectoral meets with Prime Minister. And you rightly pointed out that he talked about innovation, entrepreneurship, investments into the India. I think having Elon Musk in current Trump 2.0 administration is the vantage point for India, I would say.
Indeed. Shubhendu, while we are waiting for, we are told that Prime Minister Modi would be reaching White House any moment now. We'll play out those visuals when they become available. But while we are waiting for that to happen, I want to go back to what you said something towards the end of your intervention there. You spoke about the personal rapport that Mr. Modi enjoys with world leaders, including President Trump. What should one make of the bonhomie or camaraderie or bromance, as some people call it, between the two principals, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump? PM Modi is one who invests a lot of time, energy and effort into establishing a rapport with world leaders. So can we expect them to build on what they have achieved so far in Trump 1.0 and build on it going forward?
Absolutely, Ramesh. I think two leaders who share a great comfort space with one another, who understand one another, and the trust factor in times like today where trust deficit is a sort of global problem among nations and leaders. In that sense, two leaders who've known the manner in which the other works and have confidence in one another can get cracking on action and agenda for both their respective governments. In that sense, it shouldn't be surprising us if there are some big ticket announcements as well. Both of them are focusing on innovation, on strengthening their own economies, strengthening their people, pumping up manufacturing in the country. In that sense, their priorities seem to be there is a lot of convergence, there is a lot of resonance in that, and the confidence in one another, in the worldview that they share. All of that contributes in making sure that the two administrations can work together in a more efficient manner. And when we refer to them as close global, close strategic partners, it's very, very important that every level of the government understands the other aspect of it. And when the top leadership share a great deal of comfort, great deal of confidence with one another, then it tends to also percolate to other departments, and we see that synergy playing out, and that synergy will be very, very crucial for both the countries in the days ahead. One example would be also because in this two-nation visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his first stop was France, where advanced technologies such as AI was being deliberated, and that is one of the domains where India and the United States are likely to be key partners in the days ahead. In the recent times, we've seen the advances that China has made in this domain, the models that it has created more efficiently, that has put the Western nations, America in particular, in concern. So the manner in which these advanced technologies, critical emerging tech can be jointly created, jointly developed in a more efficient manner is something that would be interesting. And for the leaders to have a great rapport already together is the first big step already in working together in these critical areas of future cooperation.
Absolutely. Just to remind our viewers, we are just moments away from that much anticipated meeting, the handshake, a possible hug between the two principals, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, when the Indian leader reaches the White House for that meeting we're discussing about. May I take a moment to introduce my guest joining us on this broadcast. Joining me is Ambassador Atul Keshav. He is a president of the Washington, D.C. based US-India Business Council. He's also a former diplomat who served in India. Ambassador Keshav, welcome to this special broadcast. Good to have you join this discussion. Like I said, we are waiting for that much anticipated meeting to take place, to begin at the White House. And while we are waiting for just that, may I ask you for your thoughts on the optics and the likely outcomes from this meeting?
Well, first of all, Ramesh, thanks for having me on the program. Great
Welcome.
to see you. First of all, we need to exult in the fact that within the first 25 days of President Trump's term, we have a visit by the Prime Minister of India. This would have been unimaginable 10 years ago or 20 years ago or even 50 years ago when USIBC was founded. We have come a long way between Delhi and Washington, and I think it reflects the importance of India. It reflects the importance of US-India ties, and it reflects the warmth and friendship and mutual regard that President Trump and Prime Minister Modi have for one another. So I view this as a really a landmark day, and I'm quite happy to see the scenes that we're about to witness.
As I was asking my colleague in Washington, D.C., Ambassador Keshav, before you joined, about the much touted Modi-Trump bromance, what do you make of the camaraderie the two leaders enjoy? This emphasis on personalized diplomacy, does that hold the relationship in good stead going forward?
Well, personal chemistry is very important in diplomacy, and there are many, many examples of it throughout history. I recall that the personal chemistry during the nuclear deal between our two leaders was extremely important and helped break through some of the bureaucratic barriers that were limiting us. So I am actually very happy that the President and the Prime Minister have this personal chemistry, that they're going to continue it from the first Trump administration, and I am hopeful that it will help us achieve some good things in breaking through some of the limitations on the relationship and taking us to a new level. So chemistry is very important.
Right, Ambassador Keshav, Ambassador Bhattacharya, Mr. Kumar and Shubhendu, do stay on. I'll come back to all of you momentarily. Let me let me delve into the specifics of the relationship and focus on defense to begin with. Now, defense cooperation between India and the US is multifaceted. It includes a regular institutionalized bilateral dialogue, military exercises and defense procurements. The defense cooperation is based on what is known as the new framework for India-US defense cooperation, which was renewed for 10 years in 2015. In 2016, the defense relationship was designated as a major defense partnership. On July 30th, 2018, India was moved into Tier 1 of the US Department of Commerce's Strategic Trade Authorization License exception. At the apex of the dialogue mechanisms is the 2+2 ministerial dialogue, co-chaired by the Ministers of External Affairs and Defense on the Indian side and the Secretaries of State and Defense from the US. Now, the India-US Defense Industrial Cooperation Roadmap, which concluded in May 2023, seeks to fast-track technology cooperation and co-production in areas of mutual interest. Military-to-military exchanges take place through high-level visits, exercises, training courses, and regular service-specific bilateral mechanisms. Now, India has the largest number of military exercises with the US, which are only growing in scale and complexity. Right, talking about defense cooperation, Ambassador Bhattacharya, what do you make of the roadmap that both sides could possibly be working on, including, as I mentioned before, a new defense framework agreement is in the works, we are told?
So this is particularly one of the areas in which the two sides have made steady progress over the years, more so in the most recent years. The complexity of the geopolitical situation around us has become one of those imperatives which has brought India and the United States much closer together. And it is today, in a sense, a close bond between the two sides where it encompasses all aspects of a defense cooperation that should be there between very strong and stable strategic partners. The new understanding of the Indo-Pacific is one in which India and the United States play a particularly significant role, because as the geoeconomics has shifted, the geopolitics needs to respond to it. And I think in the ways that we have been able to combine the different aspects of the collaboration on our between our militaries in particular and the tail that goes behind the military in terms of the science and technology, the hardware production, is truly admirable. And finally, of course, when we do have the 2+2, which brings the defense and external affairs ministries together in a coordinated approach with the American side. So at every level, whether it is in terms of the philosophy of our defense cooperation or it's the actual mechanics of how our armies collaborate, we have come a long way. There is still further efforts to be made, and I'm sure the two leaders would be discussing many of that in the meeting ahead.
Indeed. Ambassador Keshav, from your vantage at the USIBC, what might be the next big idea in the defense relationship? Would US players be interested in giving a fillip or a big push to Prime Minister Modi's Make in India campaign?
Well, first, let me just compliment Ambassador Bhattacharya on his excellent overview. And let me add that I think there's a lot of promise. If you think, for instance, about drone warfare, about net-centric warfare, about applying artificial intelligence to enhancing the deterrent capability of our militaries, fighter jets, drones, and so much else besides, I think there's a lot we can do together. You know, we need to break through some of the bureaucratic barriers that limit us and hinder us, and we ought to look at complementary strengths. So if India can, for instance, make the hulls of warships faster than we can, but we can put in the electronics and the armaments in ways that are helpful and enhance the platform, then maybe we should work together, because our competitors are working very fast on things like shipbuilding and drone warfare, and therefore we need to move faster.
Mr. Kumar, Ambassador Keshav referred to what he calls bureaucratic barriers. So that gives me a perfect segue to my question to you. Talking about barriers, do you think the barriers to transfer of technology should also be removed?
Certainly, Dan, and that's what I think India would hope for, because if you look from the Indian point of view, it's the technology which they need to scale up the production, and that is something which I think Government of India is going to discuss with the United States government. They would want the technology transfer to happen. If not, then there could be a joint partnership where US companies invest in India, or Indian companies partner with US companies and invest in the US, or there is a co-production, as Ambassador Keshav mentioned. So yeah, and that transfer of technology, even though we're talking from defense perspective, it could also be used for other civilian purposes. Whether it's the field of energy, or whether it's trade or investments. Technology partnership is something which India would strive for under this negotiations.
Okay, so as we wait for the meeting to begin at the White House between the two principals, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, let me dive deeper into another aspect or dimension of the relationship, and that is energy. Now, India and the US have a strong bilateral partnership in the energy sector in particular. In April 2021, an India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership was launched. It has two tracks: Strategic Clean Energy Partnership and Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue. The inaugural Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue meeting in September of 2021 in New Delhi was co-chaired by the then US Special Envoy on Climate and India's Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The hydrocarbon trade was $13.6 billion in 23-24. The US joined the International Solar Alliance in 2021 and ratified it the very next year in 2022. The US is also a member of the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, or CDRI. Now, India participates in the Major Economies Forum hosted annually by the US as well. Now, in August 2023, India and the US launched what is known as the US-India Renewable Energy Technology Action Platform. Right. If I can talk to our guests more on the energy cooperation. Mr. Kumar, if I can come to you first, your thoughts on the roadmap or the road ahead to ramp up collaboration in energy, in clean energy, green energy, and generally in the various facets, including hydrogen, biofuels, and so on.
I think you rightly covered when you were giving an overview of what US-India's clean energy partnership is. But I believe that going forward, at least in the next 4 years, the clean energy partnership will revolve quite a lot around the nuclear energy. And it was also quite evident from the India's budget, where the government of India announced a 100 gigawatt target by 2047, and to have indigenously built small modular reactors, I think 5 SMRs by 2023. So that will be one of the pillars under which the clean energy partnership will evolve over the next years. We still have to wait and watch and see how US government's priorities evolve, especially on the green energy. As we know that at this point, all federal programs are under review. But it also helps that Elon Musk is part of the government, because he is very much with electric mobility, electric vehicles. He's a champion in this case for sustainable development. That's something which he also brought it up with the Prime Minister. So I would say that when US-India clean energy partnership going forward would hinge on use of technology. So AI would come in very prominently. Nuclear energy. With respect to biofuels and green hydrogen, there is a task force which already exists between DOE and the Government of India. But we still have to wait and watch and see how does the US priorities evolve in this current administration.
And talking about just that, Ambassador Keshav, talking about the US priorities, as Mr. Kumar put it there, from your vantage at the USIBC, what would you like to see happen in the near term insofar as civil nuclear energy cooperation is concerned? We keep hearing about small nuclear reactors. India has indicated it will revisit the liability laws going forward. Is there scope for doing more, especially from the American private sector companies in India in the near term?
Well, there's an enormous scope to do more, and I think American companies are best in world in terms of technology, and they're very eager to participate in India's energy evolution. If you think about it, India's made enormous progress in the past few years in ensuring energy supplies to its growing industries and its population, but there's always going to be more energy demand, especially in an era of artificial intelligence. We're seeing enormous uptick in the demand on national grids. So we can work on nuclear together. You mentioned the liability issue. This goes back to the point I made about some of the bureaucratic and policy and legal barriers that inhibit us. We need to work on this very seriously because I think there are Indian companies that want to partner with American companies to establish modular nuclear reactors to power Indian industry, which is going to be very good for India. We also, I think, can look at oil and gas. You know, USIBC was very honored to host my dear friend, respected colleague, Minister Hardeep Singh Puri at the India Energy Week in Delhi yesterday. And American companies are happy to work with India on exploitation of hydrocarbon resources in India's offshore. But American companies can also ensure secure supply of oil and gas to India as India works through the future of its electricity consumption. So I'm quite bullish on this, and I hope that it will be a big feature of the discussions between the two leaders and may result in some very positive outcomes.
Ambassador Bhattacharya, when we talk about energy, we keep hearing about two contrasting visions or versions. We hear a Trump speak about drill, baby, drill, and an Emmanuel Macron talk about plug, baby, plug. Be that as it may, can we expect India to commit itself to buying more LNG from the US towards the end of those delegation level talks?
Well, as a growing economy and as one of the fastest growing major economies in the world, India's energy needs will continue to expand, and we will need to have energy security and efficiency at the same time. And the kind of energy transformation that we are undergoing at present means that while we will continue to have large dependence on hydrocarbon fuels, we will increasingly turn in terms of proportion of energy consumption towards the renewables. On the hydrocarbons, as you have noted already in your opening remarks, we have already expanded our collaboration with the United States to the extent that we import a very large amount of our hydrocarbons from there. And in the kind of very fragile situation that we are in terms of the hydrocarbon market, there are two essential features. One is, of course, to expand our own hydrocarbon generation potential, which requires collaborations on exploration and exploitation. And the second is to secure long-term contracts, whether it's for oil or gas. And I think on all these, the collaboration with the United States will continue to develop and strengthen in the days to come. The second part, which I think is equally important, if not more so, will be the technology collaborations that will actually fuel the transformation in the energy sector that India desires to have, because the Americans have the capability, and today we are trying to provide the enabling legislative framework as well as the incentive mechanism in terms of policies that will make this collaboration much more viable, whether it be in nuclear or in hydrogen or in other renewable sources. So I do see that there will be a balance. A lot of it will go with the kind of targets that we have set for ourselves in terms of the energy transformation. And the US, I think, is aligned with these particular priorities. And there's so much scope for a growing nation that there will be enormous potential for specific collaboration between US companies and India.
Ambassador Kashyap, I know you're pressed for time. I'll come back to you momentarily for one last question. But if I may go across to my colleague Shubhendu for more on these various facets of the relationship. Shubhendu, we haven't spoken much about the diaspora yet. We saw them welcome Prime Minister Modi, and this become a trademark of sorts. Every time PM travels, he makes it a point to meet with the local Indian community there. Give us a sense of the excitement there, the sense of anticipation, so to speak, among the Indian Americans, including PIOs, persons of Indian origin living in the US.
Absolutely, Ramesh. In fact, earlier when we were talking about the bonhomie between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, one would think of two mega diaspora associated programs. First was the Howdy Modi program of 2019, and then President Trump came to India, the Namaste Trump program of 2020. We saw the manner in which the people in both the countries, the diaspora, are sort of excited about the partnership between the two countries and the two leaders. Yesterday, when Prime Minister arrived in Washington DC, and mind you, it's a chilly weather. It's sunny at the moment, but it had snowed day before. It was drizzling yesterday under the open sky. Many of these diaspora members had gathered for a couple of hours. They were chanting Prime Minister's name, chanting nationalist slogans, and waiting for Prime Minister to come. So despite the weather, people of all age groups had gathered outside of Blair House to welcome Prime Minister, and their excitement was palpable even when they heard that the arrival would be delayed by a few minutes. At the same time, one particular section of the diaspora, the Indian students studying in America, and mind you, that is one of the largest foreign student community in United States. There's some 3.3 lakh Indian students who study in America. Their expectations are also very high from this particular visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting President Donald Trump in the new term. The expectations also on the side of concerns around immigration. There are certain policy changes that are taking place, policy evaluation that are taking place that are creating some concerns in members of the diaspora. There is, of course, a separate issue of illegal immigration, but for legal immigration, for H-1B visa, for students today and professionals tomorrow, to have a clear path, those are some concerns which they shared with us, and they said that they really hope that the two leaders, given that they have such an excellent rapport, Prime Minister would be able to communicate the aspirations of thousands of Indian students who come here, entrepreneurs who want to create a future here and also contribute to the American economy as Indians often do, especially in the tech and medical sector. So those aspirations are also finding a voice at this very special moment when the two leaders, in fact, are just about to meet.
Absolutely. Ambassador Keshup, before we let you go, why don't you talk to us a bit more about the Indian American community? Have they come of age, finally found their voice and become a force to reckon with in US politics?
Now that I've unmuted, thank you again, Ramesh, for the opportunity. Look, Indian Americans have every right to feel very proud. There are many prominent Indian Americans. They've achieved great things in this country, in our free society that rewards hard work and innovation and excellence. And yet there is still more to be done. If you think about it, we still need to develop the kind of institutions and advocacy organs that help guide and shape and provide thought leadership in terms of the political issues that are important to Indian Americans. These can include issues related to immigration, skilled immigration. They can also relate to our education and culture, and they can relate to the national security interests of the United States. I think about, for instance, the America-Israel Political Action Committee and others that are so much better staffed and funded and organized and vocal and voluble in terms of how they advocate for things that are of interest to the United States and the American people and also to Israel. And I think that there is room for improvement for Indian Americans. We do need to get more organized. We have now, I think we're into basically the fourth or fifth generation since people moved to California from Punjab in the teens and 20s. So we need to develop these institutions, but it is always a joyful time when the leaders of our two countries, India and America, get together. There are 1.8 billion free people under those flags of America and India. And we need to work together to get all of our problems sorted so that we can really unleash the innovation and ambition of our citizens. So this is a great moment, and I wish both leaders every success on behalf of all of our people.
All right. On that note, Ambassador Keshup, may I thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.